UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Victoria Dudakova versus Jinh Frey. The way I see this fight, although Jinh Frey is somewhat underrated because I do think she's been robbed a few times in her career so far, I see this fight as Victoria Dudakova is a lot more athletic. Well, maybe not more athletic, but she's got a size advantage, she's got a reach advantage, and she is just better as a fighter. And I think what the UFC has tried to do here, seeing as she's 24, Jinh Frey is 38 years of age, coming off some losses, not looked good in her recent fights, even though she did kind of get robbed by Vanessa Demopoulos, I still don't think she's looked all that good. I mean, didn't Jinh Frey make Kay Hansen look good in their fight, if I'm not mistaken? Elise Reed just beat her, and I don't think much of Elise Reed. And yes, she beat Ashley Yoder, Gloria De Paula. Not much going on yet, but yeah, she did lose to Kay Hansen, which just isn't a good look whatsoever. I know Victoria Dudakova's last fight ended in a weird way where there was an injury to her opponent, but at the same time, I think I know what the UFC's doing here. Victoria Dudakova's pretty hot, and they want her to win. So they found Jinh Frey 11-9, arguably should be cut from the UFC anyway, to try and give Victoria Dudakova a win. So if this backfires on the UFC, so be it. But I see what this fight is and what they're planning from this fight. They want Victoria Dudakova to win. We move on. And smart for them to have the female fight on the earliest fight possible on this card before the crowd starts getting in. You know what I'm saying? We move on. Nathaniel Wood versus Mohammad Naimov. Now, I was worried for a bit that Mohammad Naimov was going to find a way to chin Nathaniel Wood, because I do feel like Nathaniel Wood is ready for a chinning. Okay? But Jamie Mullarkey's striking defense in his fight with John McDessie was so unbelievably awful that I kind of take away points from Naimov for getting that upset KO, where he was losing originally and then landed a big shot. I know he was smaller, coming up from 145, took the fight on short notice. I understand all of that, but I've really dropped my level of expectation of Jamie Mullarkey's career moving forward after his last performance, and that means that I don't really rate Naimov as much as maybe I did when he first got that win. Nathaniel Wood, very technical, very covered up as well in his stance. You got to kind of go to the body on him a little bit, I feel like, because he keeps such a high guard and he's ready to block head kicks. And he did get caught by Andre Fili, but he managed to recover and get himself back into the fight. I just think he's far too technical for Naimov. He's going to be a little bit smaller, but I kind of feel like that kind of takes away the risk of Naimov's ability to get a KO here. Naimov might, like, when he gets a KO, he'll land like a counter, big hook, right on the tip of someone's chin. Whereas Nathaniel Wood is shorter, and he always keeps his chin tucked with his high guard. I think it's going to be really hard for Naimov to clip a shorter, tucked up opponent on the chin like Nathaniel Wood. And I think the shortness of Nathaniel Wood is actually going to give some problems to Naimov when it comes to him stuffing takedowns of Naimov and also being able to catch him while Naimov's going for his big trades. So I think Nathaniel Wood's going to win this fight. I'm going to go by late rounds TKO after Naimov is swinging and missing quite a bit and landing on the guard. I think Nathaniel Wood gets this one done in the third round by stoppage for all of the reasons I've just listed out. And at the end of the day, even though Naimov did get that upset win over Jamie Mullarkey, Nathaniel Wood has beaten Andre Fili and Charles Jourdain back-to-back. People said robbery in the Fili fight. I don't understand how they can score that for Fili. The third round is what it comes down to, and Wood clearly won the third round. People are just massively coping since, I think it was like in the era of, oh, well, Pimlet got gifted a decision, so every UK fighter must get one, you know what I'm saying? So they were kind of taking that into it. But no, Nathaniel Wood won that fight clearly, even while getting caught in the first round badly. So I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood, and his performance against Jourdain was really good. And we've seen how good Jourdain is now, you know what I mean? He's coming off back-to-back wins, really built himself up. It's not like he fell off a cliff. Like, he's actually pretty good, and he's rebounded since that loss. So I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wood, third round stoppage. I think the leg kicks are going to be big here, especially to the inside leg, Jonathan Martinez style. We move on. Up the card, Mike Breeden versus Anshul Jubli. We get it, UFC. You want an Indian fighter in the UFC. Okay, you tried it with KB Bhullar. Now you've got Anshul Jubli. I do think he's actually really good. I'm not saying he's like can-fed and he's not good and he's soon to be exposed. I do think he's really good. But Mike Breeden again. George Hardwick's not in the UFC because you don't deem him good enough when you gave him a monster on the Contender Series to beat. But Mike Breeden, bring him in. Lost to Nathaniel Levy. That should have been a clue enough. Lost to Terence McKinney by getting smoked in round 1. Should just be cut from the UFC. Now he's fighting against Anshul Jubli. Like, whenever they have a prospect at lightweight that they want to get a win, they basically just go, Mike Breeden, come and sacrifice yourself by first round TKO. Mike Breeden's terrible. He's 10-6. He don't have any good wins. He ain't UFC level, and it's been proven time and time again. Anshul Jubli's going to win this one by second round TKO to ground and pound after a bit of a risky first round where they're both going to be going at each other. I think Jubli's big enough, strong enough to get him down and beat him up on the ground. We move on. Up the card. Abu Azaitar versus Sedriques Dumas. I'm going to go with Sedriques Dumas. Reason being, although Abu Azaitar is a little bit more experienced, I don't think these Azaitar brothers commit to the game of UFC. I think they're like, I'm not going to make any accusations, but I think they got some other stuff going on in their life, and fighting is just their other way of making some clean money, let's just say. I don't think they're entirely focused on the sport, and if he was, he wouldn't have been out since March of 2021 at 37 years of age. I think Sedriques Dumas is actually in a position in his life where he needs this. This is all he's got. He's 28 years of age. It's now or never. I know that Cody Brundage is absolutely awful, so I'm not going to rate a win over him all that much whatsoever, but I don't think he's all that bad. Got caught in a submission against John Fremd. I think he's got ability. There's a base layer of talent that can be evolved upon. You know what I'm saying? With Sedriques Dumas, whereas I think Abu Azaitar's had his chance, and he's messed it up for himself, and he's not committed to the game. Maybe Abu Azaitar could win, but what I do see happening is a late second round TKO for Sedriques Dumas. Also, a lot of opponents are trying to take down Sedriques Dumas, and he's a striker. He likes to get loosey-goosey on the feet, throwing his long limbs out there and catching people. That's what he likes to do. He had to grapple with Brundage because it was forced upon him in their last fight, but I feel like Abu Azaitar is going to try and strike with him and get stuck in. And I think Sedriques Dumas is going to catch him at the end of one of his shots at some point in the second round. I just don't think much of Abu Azaitar. And he's very short for the division as well. So I think Dumas is going to have a long range advantage and be able to catch him at the end of some of his shots. Sedriques Dumas, second round TKO. I don't mind Abu Azaitar as an underdog, but I don't think he's committed to the game. I really don't. We move on. Up the card. Burping. Just had a protein shake. Javid Basharat versus Victor Henry. I'm going to go with Javid Basharat, but I will say this, and I've now gone bright all of a sudden because I'm looking at the odds. The fact that Victor Henry is as big of an underdog as he is, it's worth some money. Like, it really is worth some money. They've got, like, Javid Basharat, like, over a 3-1 favorite here. Should be a 2-1. Victor Henry is no joke. Like, I know he's old and he didn't look good in his last fight. I get that. But he's tricky for everyone. And Javid Basharat, you know, the Mateus Mendonça decision dominant decision win where Mendonça was kind of just in the fight the whole time, making it somewhat competitive. It was a tough one. You know what I'm saying? Because now Mendonça is negative IQ points after his last fight. So I don't really look at that fight the same way for Javid Basharat. But he did look great against Tony Gravely. He did look good against Trevin Jones as well. And I think they are, even though their records don't quite say it, they are very technical, tricky fighters. But Victor Henry, in his last fight against Tony Gravely, if you compare the two of them, it was a lot closer than Javid's one. A lot closer than Javid's. And they have a very similar style with high output, low impact, low effort, striking on the feet, moving around quite a bit on the outside. They have a very similar style. They fought the same opponent, and Javid had a much clearer win against him. And Victor Henry's 36 years of age. Javid Basharat's 28. Got a reach advantage. Got a height advantage. I think it's all of these things going to come together and give him the decision win over Victor Henry. 29-28 is what I'll say. I think this will be competitive. I think there will be a swing round. And I think Javid's just going to do a little bit more than Victor Henry. I think Javid can do what a Sansao did to Victor Henry and just be that technical annoyance on the outside that Victor Henry can't quite get past. We move on. Up the card, Muhammad Yahya versus Trevor Peek. Now, I was going to pick Muhammad Yahya because I was thinking to myself, you know what? It was fun. Trevor Peek is fun. We aren't allowed fun. I don't know why Trevor Peek is now undefeated again. Why is Trevor Peek considered undefeated? I'm sure he just lost. Did he not? Why is he considered undefeated? He's not. All right, well, the UFC schedule is wrong. I knew he lost to Shep Mariscal. I was wondering if it got overturned because of some kind of drug test or something. But either way, Trevor Peek, it was fun. He is fun. We aren't allowed fun. So I was going to go, you know what, Muhammad Yahya, 12-3, up and coming lightweight, he'll win. I watched Muhammad Yahya's fights. Not impressed. I actually watched his fight. I watched his last fight against a 5-3 opponent in, what's his name? I'll find it right now. In Suhail Tahiri at UAE Warriors. 5-round decision. Very tough fight for him. And it comes down to this. If you haven't seen the fight, it comes down to this. Muhammad Yahya dropped this dude in the first round badly. Beat him up. After some weirdness on the feet. I don't like his stand-up. I think it looks a bit weird. I know Trevor Peeks does as well, but I trust his chattiness to get him through this a little bit. If it's going to be sloppy, I'm going Trevor Peek. You know what I mean? Muhammad Yahya got dropped at the end of that first round by this other dude, badly, behind the ear, dropped badly, on the ground, survived the round at the very end of round 1. He then went on to lose round 2 and 3, pretty clearly by being out-grappled. I don't think the grappling skill is there for him. He then came back in 4 and 5 because he was better conditioned, and the 5-3 opponent didn't have the conditioning to keep winning for that long, and he eventually started outpointing him in the last 2 rounds. Trevor Peek's got good takedown defense. I don't see him offensively grappling here, but if this is going to be a messy fight on the feet, I'm going Trevor Peek by KO. So I'm going to go Trevor Peek. They're evens in odds, and I'm going to take him by KO here in the first round over Muhammad Yahya. Wasn't impressed by Yahya's performance. And again, if that 5-rounder was a 3-rounder, that 5-3 opponent beats him 2-1. With like a Jamie Malarkey, Michael Johnson type scored round in round 1. We move on. Up the card. To Tim Elliott versus Mohammad Mokaev. Let me double check because you know how the UFC works. They don't know what they're doing half the time. Tim Elliott versus Mohammad Mokaev. I was thinking Tim Elliott, like, a while ago. When I was, like, first seeing Mohammad Mokaev fight Malcolm Gordon, I was thinking to myself, if they give him, like, a Tim Elliott next, he's going to have problems. But since then, and since watching back some Tim Elliott fights, he's gone from, like, upsetting Tagirul and Bekov, by cheating, by the way. No pun intended. Sorry, Tim. Didn't mean to take shots at your marriage. Either way. He's a dirty cheater, this Tim Elliott he is. I'm joking. Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. There's a difference, man. Don't make it competitive. He won and out-grappled Victor Altamirano. I just didn't like the way he looked in that fight on the feet at times. And I think Mohammad Mokaev, although I don't really think he's top level, and I don't think he's going to be top level yet without some losses in the meantime, I think he can be a champ someday. But it's going to take some setbacks first against if Mohammad Mokaev beats Tim Elliott and they give him, like, Manel Cap, he's done for. I truly believe that. Mohammad Mokaev, I think he's going to win. Got the reach on the feet. 70 inches of reach for a flyweight is quite a lot. And I think he's going to be able to beat Tim Elliott here. I don't think he out-grapples Tim Elliott, but I think he can negate the grappling of Tim Elliott. And on the feet, I just think he's more dangerous. As much as Tim Elliott's okay on the feet, he's not dangerous on the feet. I trust Mokaev to maybe hurt him in those situations. So I am going to go with Mohammad Mokaev, but I will say there is great money on Tim Elliott by decision. That's my heads up to you guys. Because Mohammad Mokaev, although he's been winning and he's undefeated, and people are like, wow, what an amazing fighter, he has gone tooth and nail with some of these guys. Really, really risked it. Against Jafel Filho in his last fight, he nearly got subbed. And he was on his way to losing, and he got the rear naked choke in the 3rd round. Good for him. Against Malcolm Gordon, he got the choke in the 3rd round. He might have been on his way to losing that one. Like, it's been risky for him. So, I'm going to go Mohammad Mokaev by 29-28 decision. Tim Elliott's pretty good, and I think he'll put up a decent fight, but it won't be enough. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafarov. I think this is an absolute mismatch. I don't know why they've done this one. Muin Gafarov, he's all right. And I'm not saying he's bad. But I just, losing to John Castaneda, there's a fly. I just grabbed it with my bare hands and killed it in my hands. How can I prove that to you that I've just done that right now? Can you see that on my fingertip right there? Fuck, you can't see it on my fingertip. You see that little smudge on my fingertip? I literally just grabbed the fly. I'm such a G. Either way, where was I? Wow. I'm so happy about that. It just wandered in. I went, grabbed it out of the thin air. Light work. Muin Gafarov, shit. I don't think he's all that. Lost to John Castaneda. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't this dude lose to Chad Anheliger on the Contender Series? I'm going to check it back right now as well. He did. Won some fights on the regional scene. Against some good fighters as well, by the way. Against some good fighters, I'll give him that. But Saeed Nurmagomedov, man, he's not Muin Gafarov. You know what I mean? He's actually really good. And as much as Jonathan Martinez is a hell of a prospect, and I think there is an argument for him to win that fight against Saeed, it was a really close competitive fight between the two of them. It really was a close and competitive fight between the two of them. And that says something because Martinez is really good. Really, really good. So I consider Saeed Nurmagomedov, although he does keep having some close fights in his last two, and he obviously was losing to Sad Yakub, and I had Sad Yakub as an underdog there as well. But then he got the submission in the second round. I think he's dangerous, higher finishing potential than Muin Gafarov, and he's been in some close decisions, but I think he is about top 15 level in the bantamweight division. So I reckon he'd give Ricky Simone a decently tough fight. Might lose it, but he'll give him a tough fight, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go with Saeed Nurmagomedov. I think it's a mismatch. I think he'll beat Muin Gafarov. We move on. Ikram Aliskerov versus Warlley Alves. I'm going Warlley Alves. This dude beat Colby. No, I'm joking. Another mismatch based on short notice. Kind of sad. I wouldn't have minded the Nasruddin Imavov pick over Ikram Aliskerov because I'm not entirely sold on Ikram Aliskerov. That's what I am going to say. I'm not fully sold on this dude. He did win against Phil Hawes in his debut, but Phil Hawes has no chin whatsoever from what we've seen in his fights. So I do rate the KO win, and I do think he's going to beat Warlley Alves, but welterweights are better than middleweights. But it's Warlley Alves. This is the problem. If this was another decently good welterweight coming up, I wouldn't have minded an upset. But it's Warlley Alves. Ikram Aliskerov's very good. I'm not underrating him at all here. Really good grappling. Really good striking as well. Dangerous. I think he's grown since his initial measurement of 6 foot. I think he's a little bit taller than that now, if I had to guess. Probably about 6'1". He's not a small dude for middleweight. But I've seen some fights of him on the regional scene as well. He had a fight with someone who looked terrible on the Contender Series recently, a South African dude. And his name was Chad Hannacum at Brave FC. Split decision he went to with him. That is not a good look in my opinion. And I don't like that people are basically going, well, you know, he got KO'd by Khamzat, but he stuffed a takedown. I don't think he's as amazing as people make him out to be. But I do think he's good enough to beat Warlley Alves. Got to go with him over Warlley Alves here. And he's at a full camp. And he's in his prime. And Warlley's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. And if you want to talk about Warlley Alves for a second, he's coming off loss to Nicholas Dalby. So I'm going to go with Ikram Aliskerov winning this fight for sure. I don't know if Warlley's been all that active either, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he last fought in January of 2021. So, no, January start of this year. Hasn't been crazy inactive, but I just don't trust him to win. So I'm going to go with Ikram Aliskerov. We move on to the main card. Whoa, holy cancellations. Right, I'm going to have to go to Tapology to find out what's the start of the main card here. Right, well, I've done the whole order off. We're already on the main card. Wow, this card, yeah, it fell apart, didn't it? It really fell apart. Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. This is Autism Manifest. I'm going Johnny Walker. I can't deny my feelings anymore. Not in that way about Johnny Walker, all right? I keep doing this. I have a feeling Strickland actually could give Adesanya a lot of problems. Nah, Adesanya would just whoop him the leg kicks. I keep having these feelings about fights when they first get made, and I go against them. Like, no, logic shall dictate. You know, that's how you know you're not in MMA anymore. Logic. No, logic ain't allowed in this world, and we've learned that this year, okay? Now, I'm not going to pick any underdogs coming up, but I am going to go with Johnny Walker over Magomed Ankalaev. I've got a feeling that he is going to finish Magomed Ankalaev in a weird way. I like Johnny Walker. He's got a 7-inch reach advantage here. I had this about Edson. I was like, God, my feeling is Edson, but is there really going to be another underdog in the main event? I might go Yusuf. I'm just going to go Yusuf. Logic says I should go with Yusuf. And I was like, no, forget it. I'm going Edson. They're going to be striking and Edson's going to win. And what do you know? He pulls it off. Johnny Walker's going to catch Ankalaev with his long, gangly arms, because Ankalaev is used to everything being so technical. And he ain't fought a wild man recently, man. He ain't fought a nutty character recently like Johnny Walker. He's fought against Anthony Smith, Jan Blachowicz, and when he fought a wild man from Brazil in Thiago Santos, he got dropped on his ass in that fight and made a stinker of it over 5 rounds, holding him against a cage like a coward. So I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. He won't be held against a cage. I think he has underrated takedown defense because of how strong his hips are. And I don't like that Ankalaev, you got to agree with me here, doesn't use his grappling unless he needs to. I don't like that look whatsoever. This dude don't use his grappling unless he's losing on the feet, basically. And I don't like that in fights. Maybe it's because he doesn't want to get caught in a guillotine. He's got or a triangle or something when he's dry. Maybe he's got Paul Craig TSD. You never know. But I think Johnny Walker's going to catch him. I do. He's wild. He can throw things that other guys don't throw. He's going to mog Ankalaev as well in the build-up. I do believe that as well. He's going to be a lot larger than him. He's got momentum. And I think he's going to catch him with some goofy stuff. So what I think is going to happen is it's going to be a trickier fight than Ankalaev expected in the first round. Second round, he's going to be doing good, but not chinning Walker and not having the crazy amount of success. I could look so bad here. And I'm not just doing it because he's Dagestani. I know I'm going to hear comments like that. I've just got a vibe about this. And I can see Ankalaev shooting in a bad takedown and Walker elbowing him to the side of the ear or something and just finishing him from there. I think it's going to be some weirdness like that. Or Ankalaev shoots a single leg and he Paul Craigs him, smacks him with the back fist. Something weird. I just think the massive finishing potential here is on Johnny Walker. And he is a massive underdog against Ankalaev. I'm taking it. The underdogs that I like. I'm going with Johnny Walker. I don't pick underdogs often. When I do, I have my reasons. And I got my reasons for Johnny Walker. I think he's massively improved. And I think he's going to beat Magomed Ankalaev. And I also believe that if there was ever a time for Ankalaev to be sick of MMA, it would be now. He just fought Jan Blachowicz for an interim belt. Went to a draw. Felt like he was robbed, even though he wasn't really. Unless you watched the Weasel's biased video. Felt like he was robbed. Got angry about it, stormed out. Now he's not even fighting for a title elimination bout here against Johnny Walker. If he wins this one, he's not going to get a title shot either. He just worked his whole life to get somewhere, got set back 2 spaces for not even a loss. Walker's going to get him with momentum. We move on. Usman versus Chimaev. This is going to be a long video. I like these ones. I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev by KO in the first round, and I'm going to tell you why. Covington was tagging up Usman on the feet in moments. And it wasn't in the first round, I understand, but Covington wasn't switched on in the first round. He was terrified of Usman in that first round, and it took him getting dropped in round 2 to wake up and start landing on Usman. And I think the Usman that fought Covington is better than the Usman that fought Edwards. I do think he's degrading over time. That was part of my reason for the Leon Edwards pick. He's picking up injuries to his knees. He's picking up injuries to his hand. He broke his hand after the first Leon Edwards fight. Had to get surgery on that. got KO'd by Leon Edwards. I know he's going to have this nothing to lose mindset and he's going to come out there like a savage looking all confident and stuff. But I will say this. Usman is used to a physicality advantage. It has been the main reason for his wins throughout his entire career. Covington is basically a natural lightweight, and all of his other title defenses at welterweight have been against Masvidal and Burns, former lightweights. I think Chimaev's going to get him. And I know you can say, well, look at what Burns did to Chimaev and what he did to Usman. Usman smoked him in round 2 after Burns hurt him in the first. Chimaev went life and death with Burns. But Burns has something that Usman doesn't. And Usman has never had this in his game, ever. If it comes out that he does now, in this fight, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be the craziest combat sports event of all time if Usman and Volk win. But I don't see Usman winning. I think Chimaev's going to catch him in the first round. Burns has power on his back foot with counter hooks. Usman doesn't do that. Everything Usman does that's ever good is from him trudging forward. Chimaev ain't taking a step back here with Usman stepping in on short notice, not acclimatized to the middleweight division. I'm going to go into that a lot more in an individual prediction video, but I think Chimaev walks him down and smokes him in round 1, with a big power shot on the chin. Finishes him, maybe hurts him on the feet and then takes him down and beats him up. I think this is going to be a bad first round TKO to Khamzat Chimaev against Kamaru Usman. Burns has power on the back foot and he has stuff to offer off of his back. Usman might have better wrestling than Burns, but he has nothing to offer off of his back on the ground, and he has no power off of his back foot. Never has, no slickness on the back foot, and if you've got bad knees, you don't like moving backwards in fights, and I think that's going to be a problem for him against Chimaev. So I think Chimaev's going to start fast, push him back with a big front kick to the body, maybe get into a grappling exchange, and both of them end up standing again. He's going to start pushing Usman back again with a strong jab. They're going to be jabbing at each other quite a bit, and then Chimaev's going to clobber him with a right hand. An uppercut, an overhand. Covington was rocking Usman in their first fight. I think it's going to be a problem here. This is not someone who's going to fear the takedown of Usman, and everyone who's fought Usman has feared that, except for Covington. Is Chimaev more dangerous than Covington on the feet? 100% he is. That's why I don't like this matchup for Kamaru Usman. And Chimaev's got close in reach to Usman as well, 1 inch away. So I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev, getting a first round TKO over Usman. I'll break it down more in detail later. We move on. Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. I just think Volk's not going to win it. And I've got a few reasons as to why. Is he dangerous for Makhachev? Yes. But there's a lot of factors. The skill between the two of them is very even. But what ended up happening was Makhachev did better on the feet than expected and Volkanovski did better on the ground. That was the takeaway from their first fight that they had. The difference is in this one, Volk's not had a full camp. Volk's not built himself up to 155. He's not going to be as big as strong as he was in the 155-pound bout that they had the first time, because that time he had a weigh-in beforehand to make weight as a replacement for Makhachev Oliveira 1, or just Makhachev Oliveira, seeing as we never got the rematch because of this. He made weight as a replacement and then stayed at 155-pound shape, did another training camp, and then fought Makhachev at 155. Volk just fought at 145, just got ready to fight Ilia Topuria. Well, was about to get ready to fight Ilia Topuria. So you know he was keeping his weight low. I think he's going to be weaker and smaller than he was in the first fight. And I think Makhachev is going to be bigger and stronger than he was in their first fight because he had to drain himself down for the perf card, couldn't rehydrate the same way, had a much shorter rehydration window, had to fly across the world and account for jet lag as well. It was all in Volkanovski's favor, and Makhachev still won. Even if you don't think he did and you want to change the rules because you don't like the way it's scored about a guy holding onto the back, I think there should be maybe a rule with intent of position. Like if you're on someone's back and you're trying to choke him out, that's points. But if you're on someone's back and you're holding on for dear life, that's not points, but that's just how the scoring system is. If you have a dominant position, it's going to be rewarded. I think Makhachev is going to catch Volk. In the third round, I think he landed a lot of knees in the clinch to the body a bunch of times. And I think he's going to land it to the head this time in the clinch after doing a bit better in the grappling in the first 2 rounds. Volk's going to have moments where people go, well, Volk's doing his thing. And I think it's going to be a sudden, Volk crashes in, Makhachev meets him in the middle, tie clinch, knee to the face from Islam Makhachev. And I think his takedowns are going to come from the clinch a lot more than him shooting out in the open like he was against Volkanovski the first time. So I'm going to go Islam Makhachev, 3rd round TKO. I want Volk to win. I want Usman to win. I want them both to win and this to be the craziest combat sports event in UFC history. Or in history. This might be... Imagine if they both step in and both win. That'd be crazy. I just can't go against Makhachev here. Volk's 35. And he very openly said he had injuries that he needed to deal with after his fight with Yahya Rodriguez, that he fought with against Yahya Rodriguez. And that's why he wasn't coming back before the end of the year. And now he's ready for October all of a sudden? Don't buy it. I think he's rushing back in less than top condition because he knows it's a win-win. No one's going to look at him bad if he loses this one because he's the hero of the card. I'm going Islam Makhachev TKO. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.